Welcome to the Purpose-Based Retirement with Certified Financial Planner Casey Weade. Casey is the president of Howard Bailey Financial.
Whatever risk you face during your retirement years, we've got a plan.
A published author and radio host.
It's not how much we make during the good times, it's how much we keep during those really bad times.
His advocacy for retirees and pre-retirees has made him a sought-after speaker and trusted financial leader.
And putting a real plan together.
This is the Purpose-Based Retirement.
Good to see you again. Glad you're here. I am Lee Kelso with Casey Weade, Certified Financial Planner, and the president of Howard Bailey Financial. Today on the program, the good, the bad, the ugly of annuities. It is a confusing market, and you may have heard many people say that annuities are just a bad choice all the way around. We'll take a look at that and help you feel a little better about annuities if you've already made that important decision. Casey, I mentioned the confusion that surrounds annuities. Just driving over here today to the studio, I heard a radio commercial talking about annuities. There's an annuity for everyone. Right. And then you also read that annuities are a terrible investment and they almost always lock you into long-term and fees. And where do we start helping people understand what role annuity today can play?
You know, and I've had the opportunity to literally meet hundreds of different individuals that have annuities and all types of different types of annuities at the same time. And I've met individuals that love their annuities and individuals that hate their annuities. And it's typically because they don't understand those annuities in the very first place. You may feel that you have an annuity that's great, but maybe you don't fully understand exactly how it works. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is really understanding how this vehicle works. Saying an annuity is bad is kind of like saying a stock is bad, or a mutual fund is bad, or a bond is bad, or a life insurance policy is bad. They're not necessarily bad. They're just another vehicle, another tool in the toolbox that may or may not be good for you, and in many cases they're not. And I've got to be completely honest, I don't typically like annuities. For many of the annuities that I find, I don't like them. If we had this whole table full of annuities, maybe dozens of different annuities down there, and there's hundreds out there, I only like one or two for one or two different types of circumstances. It depends on your own individual situation whether that annuity is going to make sense or not, and that's why I wanted to put this together so that you could understand some of the good things about annuities, because there's good things out there, and the bad. What are some of the bad things, and what are some of the things that people really hate about annuities? Because you need to understand these vehicles, because when we get to retirement today, we have to understand all the different vehicles and all the different options, all the different strategies that we can possibly use to give us that security we need during retirement, because you're entering 30 years of unemployment. Now is a time to get the good financial education that you need.
So let's start with the basic core function of annuity. In most cases, that's to provide recurring income, kind of like a private pension.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think about how annuities were created or why annuities were created, and that goes back to the 20s when annuities were created as pensions, right? And an annuity, that is really what it's good for at the core of that vehicle. It's good for creating income, and income to last a lifetime. You know, I hear all the time people say, well, I hate annuities, but I really love my pension. Well, your pension is a form of an annuity that was created years and years ago, and they've changed a lot over the years. They don't all act like pensions, but if we're starting to think about where can we go get a guaranteed income we can't outlive, there's no other place we can go other than some type of annuity. Think about the 4% withdrawal rule, for instance, right? We're going to take a look at that here next week, but when it comes to a 4% withdrawal rule today, that means we get to age 60, 65, you step into retirement, and now you're going to draw 4% a year out of that portfolio, and it should safely last 30 years. And that was within a 90% confidence interval back in the 80s. Well, today, it's been tested over and over again with low interest rate environment we're in today. That 4% rule is now a 1.7% withdrawal rule. Now they're saying you can only draw 1.5%, 2%, maybe as high as 3% from that portfolio and have less than a 50% chance of success. That's really concerning. Yeah. And that's where annuities have entered this income role, where we can get a guaranteed income of 6, 7, maybe even 8% a year from that $1 million portfolio. No, as long as you live, you'll always have income. You'll never outlive it. So people that say, Casey, I don't care what I leave behind, I just want to know that I'm going to be able to spend as much as possible and never run out, there's a good option.
So what's the link between annuities and long-term care or a death benefit, for example?
Well, they can also come into play for individuals that may be uninsurable, for instance. I had a gentleman that came in, a single man that had saved really hard, worked his tail off and saved his whole life to get to a point where he's at today when he's in his early 60s, he's retired, and now he's spending some of that income. He wanted to set aside some things for not just income and inflation and emergency needs, but also to take care of long-term care. Single individual wanted to make sure that he protected his nest egg to pass on to charity, and to also make sure if he had an expense that was $5,000, $10,000 a month, he could cover it. We set aside $500,000 for this uninsurable individual that couldn't qualify for long-term care, couldn't qualify for life insurance. We could set aside $500,000, guarantee that it would grow at 6% a year for the next 15, 20 years, whenever he needed it. 10 years from now, with bonuses he'll receive along the way of 5% every couple of years, he's going to see that $500,000 be guaranteed to turn into $1 million in the next 8 years, and then he can draw for that for long-term care at $100,000 a year. That'll cover his long-term care expenses. So that was a good fit for him, and if he never used it for long-term care, that $1 million would pass on to his heirs. And that was a great fit for him.
What about treating an annuity like an alternative to a bond? A bond produces predictable, reliable income over time. Isn't that kind of annuity the same process?
It can do that. A lot of people will use their bonds for their conservative part of their portfolio, say a 60-40 mix. They've got 40% stocks and maybe you've got 60% bonds. What about that 60% bond portion of your portfolio? Do you know what that's returning right now? Because the portfolios that we're auditing that have conservative bond portfolios are only yielding in the 2 to 3% return range. Wow. And you're taking risk at the same time, only making 2 or 3%. If you could go back, and I bet you're telling yourself this, if I could go out and get a 10-year bond that was insured paying 5%, I'd do that today. Well, there's indexed annuities out there that give you a portion of the gains in the market with none of the downside and lock in your returns every year that show over the last 10 years you could have returned 5-6% a year, and even in the worst market, starting in the peak of the market in 2000 to the bottom of the market in 2009, you still would have returned in that 4 or 5% range. So they can act as bond alternatives in this extremely low interest rate environment that we're in today.
So what about a pension buyout scenario? Somebody comes to me and says, my company comes to me and says, here's a lump sum. Right. Can I use an annuity to sort of recreate that pension?
Many times you can. I know we worked with a couple last week that were looking at a situation where they had the option to take their pension in a lump sum or have a guaranteed income. They didn't quite need the income yet, and we were able to take that to an annuity, a guaranteed income annuity that would guarantee the same amount of income, but now they were able to retain control over those dollars. They can move them. If they want to move them in the future, they can take more or less income, and they know, unlike that pension where there's nothing left to their heirs, they've got an account there that'll pass on to their heirs in case something happens to them. There's also a good place for them as a CD alternative. With this war on seniors that we have today, I know I had a single widow from Upland, Indiana, that came up to visit us, and she had everything in CDs because she just wanted a fixed rate of return. She didn't spend a lot of money, and heck, there were about $2 million in CDs. So with $2 million in CDs and a 1% rate of return, that's $20,000 a year. If we can give her 3% a year in a fixed annuity, that may not seem like much, but for her that tripled her income. Sure. And we get the same type of vehicle. We can move it every 5-10 years, and we can take free withdrawals. It works a lot like a CD without the FDIC coverage.
So when we come back, we're going to take a look at, well, some of the bad that can happen with annuities. Sure. But what I hope you take away from this segment is just how important it is to make the right decision. And that's why I hope you'll be one of the next 10 people who take advantage of our special offer today. For the next 10 people who call 482-9559, Casey and the team at Howard Bailey Financial will give you a financial review and a review of your entire retirement plan. It's an opportunity to get the education about your money that you so desperately need so you can make the best decisions for yourself moving forward. So for the next 10 people at 482-9559, know that Casey and the team will sit down, make some time on the calendar, visit with you, and give you your very own purpose-based retirement. I hope you'll call right now, 260-482-9559.
Hi, I'm a certified financial planner professional. I believe the bar for entry into the financial industry is far too low. You and your hard-earned money deserve better. With a CFP professional, you can have the confidence you are working with an advisor who has met not only rigorous education and experience requirements, but also is held to the highest ethical and professional standards in the industry, resulting in better methods that will address the financial challenges you will face in retirement. If you'd like to see how a CFP professional can serve you, give us a call.
You need a plan for retirement to create the lifestyle you've always dreamed of. The first step is to tune into the Purpose-Based Retirement Radio Hour with your hosts, Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson, every Saturday morning at 11 and Sunday afternoon at 1 on 1190 WOWO and 107.5 FM.
Welcome back to the program. Just a moment ago, we started by taking a look at some of the good things, some of the roles that annuities can play in your retirement. But as with the good, there's always some bad, so let's dive into that a little bit.
Well, that's right. I mean, think about a stock, for instance. I mean, a stock has a good side and a bad side, right? We can make a heck of a lot of money. We might be able to double our money in the next few months, or we could also lose everything. You know, we think about the benefits of a bond. We're able to get a decent rate of return, maybe a low interest rate, but we get fairly secure. We're fairly secure at the same time.
Sure.
You know, so I think no matter what we use, whether it's a mutual fund, a stock, a bond, or annuity, a life insurance policy, all these different tools, they're just tools. That's all they are. And we can build the most efficient plan if we isolate the right tool for the job. But there's downside, right? There's things that are bad. And we talked about some of the good things. Now we're talking about some of the bad things. You know, we're not talking about some of those things that are really ugly. We're going to get to that next.
So one of the things that you need to understand about annuities is they can be very confusing. Some people think mutual funds are confusing. What about an annuity?
Well, I would say that that's right. You know, annuities are confusing, mutual funds are confusing, separately managed accounts are confusing, life insurance policies are confusing, all these different vehicles are confusing, and that is one of the downsides of annuities. I brought with me a statement of understanding from an annuity that shows just how confusing they can possibly be. This is about 12 pages of fairly reasonably sized print, you know, and that can be difficult for someone to get in there and really understand. You need a professional to walk you through this and make sure that you're reading these things so you really understand what you're getting, because there are a lot of people out there that are selling products. They're acting as insurance salesmen rather than financial planners, and they just want to get you into a product that makes them a commission.
Sure.
You should understand these products, and a financial planner, a certified financial planner practitioner, will make sure of that. Now, let's compare that to that of a mutual fund, which people often say, well, I don't really understand annuities, they're really complicated. But, you know, mutual funds, on the other hand, I get mutual funds. Well, this is a mutual fund prospectus that you would have received in the mail, and it is 141 pages long with extremely fine print. Now, if you can say, I understand mutual funds and I can read this and I get it, well, then this 12-page disclosure should be fairly easy for you to get yourself through. But in either case, they are financial vehicles that need to be understood, and it takes some time. It's up to you to understand them with your financial professional's help in educating you on how to utilize these vehicles for what they're there for.
So just like mutual funds, there are dozens and hundreds of mutual funds, and there are that many annuities out there to choose from, right?
Sure. There's dozens, if not hundreds, of different types of annuities that are out there, and a lot of different companies that are offered at the same time. I mean, this is just a snapshot of some of the fixed annuity companies that offer fixed annuities out there in the world today. And there's a lot more where that came from. You've got Ohio National, Sagicor, Jackson, Lincoln. I mean, you could go on all day about all these different companies, and how do you know you're getting the best product for you? Well, if your financial advisor is working for one of these insurance companies, then which product do you think you're going to end up with?
Sure.
Well, you're going to end up with that product, right? But if you work with an independent advisor who can offer you anything that's available to be the best thing to fit your financial needs, then that gives you the education in order to make sure that you're empowered to make the right decision. So if you're looking for an annuity right now and you're only getting presented one annuity, well, what about the alternatives? Maybe it's time to get a second opinion, or an opinion from someone that can show you 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of annuities side by side and show you why one is better than the other.
You know, I sometimes have heard the phrase used, analysis paralysis. And you can come to that with annuities because opinions are all over the board.
Sure. Yeah, and I think the same thing is true with every other financial vehicle, but you're right about annuities for that instance. We can take a look at some of the different ones that are out there today. I pulled these off the internet not that long ago. We've got this gentleman over here that says, I hate annuities and you should too. We've got Steve Burton here, says he loves annuities and you will too. Susie Orman says, says, how do I know if a fixed index annuity is right for me? If you don't want to take risks but still want to play the stock market, a good indexed annuity might be right for you. These two gentlemen say, don't buy an annuity, and I hate annuities, internet sales gimmicks. Stop, 5 reasons to never buy a variable annuity, and these guys over here, why I love annuities, and you will too. So who do you believe?
Yeah.
Well, I've got to point out in this instance, the two that hate annuities and love annuities, well, one's an insurance salesman only, so he can only use insurance products, right? The other one's securities only, so he can only use securities products, and one should put you in his managed portfolio, so there becomes a bias there. That's why we have to work with an independent advisor that's not just independent, but also licensed to use all the different vehicles that are out there at the same time. Otherwise, you get a biased opinion.
One of the knocks I've heard about annuities is that you're capped. You have a limited growth potential.
Sure, and that is true. You know, in fixed annuities and fixed indexed annuities, one of the things that brokers often say is they'll say, well, I just don't like indexed annuities because you can't make as much as I can make you. And that's true, you know, but we're not there to hit a home run, right? We're using these vehicles to get a bond-like return. We want to make 3 to 6% and not lose. Well, there's the place that we can go to accomplish that. You know, maybe we have a limit on our gains of, say, 10% a year. You're never going to make more than that, and your gains lock in every year. Well, you're never going to make a 20% return or a 30% return in all likelihood, like you might in your stock portfolio, but you're not going to do that in your bond portfolio, your emergency fund, your CDs either. And everybody needs some safe money. So yes, that is a downside, but it's one that can be balanced by the safety aspects of it.
Yeah, we're no longer in our accumulation phase, we're in our retirement phase, so your goals are shifting a little bit.
And it doesn't mean everything should be in one vehicle. You should have some money in places that have more growth potential. You know, we should have some equities, we should have some ETFs, we should have some bonds, we should have some of that exposure while we're also having some money that's absolutely protected and is never going to go down in value at the same time. I kind of liken this to your paychecks and your playchecks. You know, we can take risk with our paychecks, but not your paychecks.
So one of the downsides that many people mention are the fees, the lock-in, you know, you lose all that liquidity. What concerns should I be paying attention to there?
Well, when it comes to the liquidity, you're going to give up some liquidity, right? Just like we would if you had a bond or a CD. There is this paradigm when it comes to getting a higher rate of return. You only have 2 different ways you can get a higher rate of return. Either you can take on more risk, or you can take on a longer term, or maybe give up some control over your money. So like people that walk into our office with a 10, 15-year bond paying 3 or 4%, all you can ever have out of that bond is 3 or 4%, the interest, unless you sell it. And if you sell it, you may have some extremely stiff penalties, especially if interest rates rise. Maybe as much as 50% penalties, right? If interest rates spike. Now, with the fixed annuity or an indexed annuity, you're going to have a penalty, and that penalty could be 1%, it could be 15%, but at least your penalties are locked in. And you're typically able to take 5 to 10% of your account value out every single year. That's more than you're probably going to get with a bond. So yes, limited liquidity, longer terms, but it's just another financial vehicle.
And if you're working with the CFP, then you've already built that into the plan and you've accommodated for that.
Exactly. We've sat down and really understood all the different vehicles that are out there and how they can best be used to create the efficient portfolio that you're looking for.
Well, I hope you'll take the opportunity we're going to give you now to sit down with a CFP. It's an offer for the next 10 people who call us right now. It's a complimentary financial review of your entire financial and retirement plan. It gives you an opportunity to learn more about your money because we want you to make the best decisions for yourself moving forward. So for the next 10 callers at 482-9559, Casey and the team at Howard Bailey are willing to make time on the calendar, sit down with you and your spouse, of course, and give you your very own purpose-based retirement. The number to call, 482-9559. And our question of the day, which individual owns the most annuities in their investment portfolio? Is it ex-Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke, or current Chairwoman Janet Yellen? How about Senator Elizabeth Dole, Dr. Ben Carson, or maybe even Vice President Joe Biden? We have the answer when we come back.
Hi, I'm a certified financial planner practitioner. There is no silver bullet for your retirement, but that is what financial advisors are selling you every day. The fact is that in the constantly changing world we're in today, it's more complex than ever. But if you can establish a clear plan of action with well-defined goals, you've taken the first step. At Howard Bailey Financial, our goal is to lend you the confidence you are on the path towards the financial independence you deserve. If you'd like help designing your personalized retirement strategy, give us a call today.
You need a plan for retirement to create the lifestyle you've always dreamed of. The first step is to tune into the Purpose-Based Retirement Radio Hour with your hosts, Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson, every Saturday morning at 11 and Sunday afternoon at 1 on 1190 WOWO and 107.5 FM.
And heading into the break, we asked you who owns the most annuities in their personal investment portfolio. We gave you the choice of some pretty influential people in the world of finance. Former Chairman Ben Bernanke of the Fed, or current Chairwoman Janet Yellen, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Dr. Ben Carson, or maybe Vice President Joe Biden. Well, I know who has the answer. It's Casey. Casey, who has the most annuities in their portfolio?
That's right, Lee. The answer is actually C, Elizabeth Warren, with $3 million in her annuity portfolio today. Now, compare that to some of the other people that you've seen on that list. In reality, all of those individuals own annuities. You know, it's public knowledge. They're required to disclose that information to the public. And we're seeing some of the biggest names in the world in politics, and not just in politics, but in finance. We see 2 Fed chairmen on that list. So if these individuals who are largely controlling the economy today are owning these annuities, are they really all that bad? Well, some of them are, but not all of them. And now we're going to talk about some of the ugly things about annuities. We talked about some of the good things. We talked about some of the bad things. And now we get to the ugly of the annuity world. And this is where I hope you come to realize that if you own an annuity, you need to make sure that you're sitting down with a professional that can educate you about exactly how that annuity works. I have never had anybody come into my office after hundreds, if not thousands of individuals I've met with over the years, and those individuals actually understand the annuities that they have. And that's up to you. It's your responsibility. It may be time to get a second opinion, and let's see why. First, we have fixed rate annuities. When it comes to a fixed rate annuity, some of them offer you big upfront rates. You may sit down and go, I've got a 5% guarantee, but that's really all they told you, because it's less than that after the first year. You've got 4.8% the first year and 2.8% every year after that. These are actual annuity rates that are out there in the world today. So what do we have? Deceptive rates many times. And then there's fixed indexed annuities and the varying degrees of caps and participation rates that you'll run into. For instance, these are some caps that are available out there in the world today. With an indexed annuity, you'll get as much as 2% of the market's gains or 6% of the market's gains, and your return locks in every year, so you can never make more than 6% or 2%. Well, why would someone ever put you in Company A with a 2% cap when you could have Company C with a 6% cap? That might be because they work for one of these companies, they're limited by their lack of independence, or they're simply biased by their form of compensation. And that's why you have to ask the right questions when you're buying these vehicles. Make sure you're working with a fiduciary. What about participation rates? Sometimes they'll give you a percentage of the gains in the markets and let your returns lock in periodically. Maybe it's 50% of the gains in the markets, maybe as little as 20. Company A has a 20% participation rate, while Company C has a 59% participation rate. So in a year like 2013, when the market's up 30%, you could have made almost 18% or just 6%. So you have limited potential and bias at the same time. What about an immediate annuity? An immediate annuity offers something that works much like a pension. An immediate annuity looks like your pension, where you have a guaranteed income stream for the rest of your life, but now you've lost control over that money. And this is what I like to call committing a annuicide. You don't want to commit a annuicide, especially in a low interest rate environment like we have today, because you lose control over those finances. It becomes permanent. Make sure you don't have a permanent annuity. Then we have variable annuities. When it comes to variable annuities, I don't know that I need to say too much. I can let some of these other individuals speak for me and for you. We've got Susie Orman that says say no to variable annuities, especially in a retirement account. We have Jane Bryant Quinn. You rarely find me so deeply angry at a common investment product that I dream of blowing it to smithereens. Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, says of all investment products, variable annuities are their #1 complaint. When it comes to AARP, they have a warning that says variable annuities are not for those that are already retired or near retirement. Now, why would they say that? Well, many a times it's because the fees and the expenses that you find in these variable annuities. I've seen variable annuity fees as high as 6% on an annual basis. You always have a mortality and expense charge, your base charge. Then you may have an income guarantee or a death benefit that adds another 1 or 2% to that 1% upfront fee. And then you may also have mutual funds, because a variable annuity is essentially a mutual fund in an insurance wrapper. So you're getting the same risk as you would have in the market. That's why they call them variable annuities. That's why they're labeled as securities. What's the real problem with annuities, though? Well, it's this guy, right? This guy right behind me shows us that it is not so much about the product, not so much about the plan, as it is selling you something to make a commission. And that's what you have to understand, is you need to be working with a financial planner who can review with you all the options, and maybe an annuity is not right for you, because for many individuals, they're not the right vehicle. Probably the majority of investors, this is not the right financial vehicle, but it may be the right financial vehicle for you if you take the time to understand it and make sure you're working with a financial planner rather than a broker or insurance salesperson. Lee, back to you.
That's the opportunity we have for you today. For the next 10 people who call us right now, it's an opportunity to sit down and get a financial review of everything you have going on in your retirement and your financial plan. Get that education about your money that you so desperately need so that you can make the best possible decisions moving forward. So for the next 10 callers at 482-9559, Casey and the team at Howard Bailey Financial will sit down, make time on the calendar, visit with you, understand a little more about your life, your needs. What are you bringing to the table? What needs do you have for leaving behind a legacy for your family? Is your long-term care accounted for in your plan? Many other elements that some people just aren't going to talk with you about. That's some of the key benefits of working with a certified financial planner and what is involved in your very own purpose-based retirement. That's what we hope you will do, is call right now, 482-9559, and make an appointment so you can sit down and learn more about just exactly what your retirements needs are, and how they can be met with all the services available in the market. Also, Casey has a new book that I want to let you know about. It's called Your 2016 Guide to Maximizing Retirement Efficiency for the Purpose-Based Retirement. You can order this book at just going online to thepurposebasedretirement.com. Casey's guide to how you can think about making sure that each one of your retirement dollars has a very specific job to perform, and that your retirement plan is geared to all of your very specific needs. We hope that you'll do that. You can order it at thepurposebasedretirement.com. And if you'd like to ask a question about anything you've seen on the program today, or anything about your own personal retirement, you can write info@howardbailey.com, or of course, just call the number 482-9559. We will see you next week at this time. We hope that you'll take good care of yourself, and we'll keep watching.